I didn't realize the music had stopped. Or maybe it hadn't. Maybe it was just me who went silent. I stood there in the center of that glittering hall, gold lights, shimmering dresses, champagne laughter, and yet I felt completely naked. Not because of my dress, not because of the crowd, but because of the words my husband had just thrown at me. Words sharp enough to cut through every piece of dignity I had left. He was behind me, surrounded by a group of guests. Their polished smiles, their expensive perfumes, their sparkling glasses. Everything blurred together as one of them let out a small laugh. Then another. Then another. They were laughing at me. His joke. My expense. I heard him say it again, louder this time. Proud, like he had won some kind of twisted trophy. She doesn't even know how to hold a conversation. I swear I married a child. People looked away, embarrassed. Not for him, for me. My throat tightened. My hands trembled. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, fast, loud, choking me. And for a moment, I thought about leaving. I thought about running out of that hall and never looking back. Because humiliation has a way of making you believe you are smaller than you really are. But something inside me refused. Something old. Something quiet. Something tired of being stepped on. I lifted my eyes and saw my reflection in one of the large crystal mirrors across the room. I didn't look weak. I didn't look broken. I looked done. Done letting him control the story. Done letting him define who I was. Done shrinking just to make him feel taller. He laughed again, louder, mocking, waiting for the room to join in. And that's when I finally understood. This wasn't the first time he humiliated me. But it was going to be the last. Because tonight, in this very room, under these very lights, something was going to change. For him. For them. But most importantly, for me. And none of them were ready for what I was about to do. I used to believe that love was something soft, something that wrapped around you like a warm blanket on a cold night. And in the beginning with Mark, that's exactly how it felt. Gentle. Almost unreal. But I learned slowly and painfully that some things only feel warm because you're too close to the fire to notice you're burning. I still remember the first time I met him. He walked into the bookstore where I worked, holding a cup of coffee and wearing that disarming smile he was famous for. Mark had a way of looking at you, like you were the only person in the room. People melted under his charm. I wasn't any different. If only I knew then what that smile was hiding. He was kind in the beginning, thoughtful, attentive. He brought me flowers for no reason, asked about my day, sent me good morning texts. My friends said I was glowing. My mother said he had marriage energy. I believed them. And when he proposed after a year, I didn't hesitate. Why would I? Nothing felt wrong. Nothing looked wrong. At least, not yet. Our first year of marriage was warm. Soft laughter, dinner dates, lazy Sundays. But little things began showing. So slowly I didn't notice how dangerous they were. Small criticism dressed as concern. Little jokes about my habits. Tiny comments about my friends. Things you brush off because everyone has flaws, right? The first time he snapped at me, it was over something stupid. Burnt toast. He said, "You can't even handle breakfast." Seriously. Then immediately followed with, "I'm sorry. I've been stressed. Come here." And I let it go because that's what love does at first. Forgives too easily. I should have written down the small moments, because they weren't small at all. Months passed. Mark changed in ways that were too subtle to confront but too sharp to ignore. At home he became impatient, cold, dismissive. But outside he transformed into the perfect husband. Charming, polite, attentive. Women loved him. Men admired him. People used to tell me I was lucky. And every time he squeezed my hand just a little too tightly. Like he wanted me to agree. One night, we were at a friend's dinner party when it happened for the first time publicly. Something that should have warned me. should have made me run. I spilled a bit of wine on the tablecloth, barely a drop. Mark leaned in and whispered, "Try not to embarrass me tonight, okay?" His smile didn't move. Only his voice changed. Cold, sharp, surgical. Froze. My heart thudded. But then he laughed loudly for the whole table and kissed my forehead as if nothing happened. Everyone thought he was sweet. Everyone except me. And that's when I realized something terrifying. Mark wasn't two different people. He was one person wearing two different masks. And soon one of those masks would fall. As time passed, the comments grew sharper. He started correcting my stories at gatherings, cutting me off, telling people I was confused or dramatic. Each time he did it, he wrapped it in humor so people laughed. He learned how to humiliate me without anyone noticing. But inside the house, he didn't hide anymore. He criticized the way I dressed, the way I cooked, the way I talked. Nothing I did was ever enough. It was like living with a judge who never put down his gavel. One evening, after another silent dinner, I asked him softly, "Mark, are you still happy with me?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Why wouldn't I be? Unless you're thinking of leaving." Leaving? I hadn't even imagined that. But the way he said it made my skin crawl. Then he added with a cold smile, "You'd never make it alone anyway." That sentence would poison my mind for months. Still I stayed. I kept telling myself he was stressed, overworked, that it was a phase, that we just needed a vacation, that I needed to be better. Victims don't realize they're victims when the cage is decorated with pretty memories. Then came the night everything shifted. We were getting ready for a fundraiser event, a high-class party with business owners, investors, important people. I wore a simple navy dress. Elegant, modest, safe. But when Mark saw me, he didn't say a word at first. He just looked up and down, slowly, coldly. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "You look fine. Guess. Just try not to say too much tonight." My heart sank. But what could I do? We were already late. At the party, Mark became the charming man everyone adored. He kissed cheeks, shook hands, told jokes. And I stood beside him, invisible but required. But I noticed something different this time. He wasn't ignoring me. He was watching me. Watching for something to mock. Something to twist. Something to use. Near the bar, a woman complimented my dress. Before I could even thank her, Mark chuckled and said, "She tried on 5 before this. You should have seen the disaster options." People laughed politely. I didn't. That was the moment I realized he wasn't done. He humiliated me again. And again. Each time louder. Each time bolder. As if he didn't even care who heard anymore. And somewhere between the forced laughter and the tight smile on my face, felt something break. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet snap inside my chest, like a string finally giving up. That was the night I understood something terrifying. If I didn't stand up soon, he would erase me completely. And even though I didn't know it yet, that night was the beginning of the storm. The storm that would expose everything. That night at the fundraiser, something inside me snapped so quietly even I didn't fully understand it. But when we got home, I felt the silence in a different way. Like the walls were waiting, watching, holding their breath with me. Mark walked in ahead of me, tossing his keys onto the table with the careless confidence of someone who believed he owned the entire world, including me. He loosened his tie, took off his jacket, and said nothing. Not an apology. Not a question. Not even a casual good night. He acted like humiliating me in front of strangers was as normal as checking the mail. That's when I realized he wasn't ashamed. I was. I stood near the doorway, still in my navy dress, shoes in my hand, heart pounding in a rhythm I was starting to hate. "Mark," I whispered, "why did you say those things about me tonight?" He paused mid-step. slowly turned, looked at me with a mixture of annoyance and amusement, like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. "Oh God," he muttered. "You're not going to start drama tonight, are you?" "Drama." He called my pain drama. My chest tightened. "I just want to understand." "You don't need to understand anything," he cut in. "You embarrassed me with that stupid wine spill last month. You're lucky I even bring you to these events." Lucky. As if I was some charity case he dragged behind him. That was the first time I truly felt afraid of him. I opened my mouth to speak, but he held up his hand sharply. "I'm tired. Go to bed." And just like that the conversation ended. Not with closure but with dismissal. I stood frozen long after he disappeared down the hallway. I stared at the empty space where he'd been standing. And for the first time, I didn't follow him. Instead, I went to the guest bathroom, shut the door, and let myself finally fall apart. Not crying loudly, just silent tears. The kind that feel like they're leaking directly from the soul. Because I knew, deep down, things were changing in ways I wasn't prepared for. The days after the party, Mark became colder. Short answers, sharp sighs, long hours away from home. He no longer even pretended to be sweet inside the house. But the cruelest part, he became extra sweet outside. Laughing loudly, opening doors for me, touching my back gently, calling me darling in front of people. He was building an image. Mask. Perfect husband persona. And the sweeter he was out there, the crueler he became in here. One day while we were grocery shopping, a woman approached us, one of his colleagues' wives. She hugged me and said, "You two are couple goals. I told Mark the other night he should appreciate you more." Mark froze. Then his smile grew. "Oh, I do," he said, squeezing my shoulder. "She's wonderful. Wonderful." His fingers dug into my skin so hard it hurt. The moment the woman walked away, his hand slipped off me, and he whispered, "Don't think you earned that compliment." And then he walked ahead, leaving me in the produce aisle with shaking hands. I started noticing everything. Little things. Dangerous things. Like the way he criticized my clothes more often. "You're wearing that. It looks fine. Basic but fine. Maybe choose something more flattering next time." Or how he started controlling how much I smiled in public. "Don't laugh so loudly. You talk too much. Just stand beside me, okay?" He wanted me seen but never heard. I tried talking to him 3 times. Each time he shut me down faster. "You're overthinking. You're being emotional. You're tired. Stop making problems where there are none." It was like arguing with a ghost. Words went right through him. And every day I felt a little bit smaller. The first real warning. One evening, I went into his office to ask if he wanted dinner. He wasn't home yet, but his desk drawer was slightly open. Papers were sticking out. I'm not a snooper. I've never been. But something tugged at me. So I pulled the drawer open. Inside were invitations. Fancy ones. From events and parties he'd gone to alone. Except, he told me he was at work on those nights. Then I saw photos on his desk. Him smiling beside people I'd never met. Women I'd never met. My throat tightened. My hands turned cold. It wasn't cheating I feared. It was something worse. A life he was building that didn't include me. A world where I wasn't needed. Or wanted. Or present. A world where he only brought me along when it benefited his image. I stepped back from the drawer, my heart racing. Then I heard the front door click. I shut the drawer quickly and rushed out before he saw. Mark walked in, phone in hand, smiling at something on the screen. He barely glanced at me. "What's for dinner?" he asked like nothing was wrong. I swallowed hard. "Whatever you want." He shrugged. "I'm not hungry. I ate out. Ate out." He hadn't told me. He hadn't texted. That was the moment I knew. I didn't have a husband. I had a stranger. The build-up to the big night. 2 weeks later, Mark announced we were invited to a huge corporate party. Important people, he said. Dress decent this time. Stung. But I nodded. I picked a dress carefully. Not too bold, not too plain. Curled my hair. Put on soft makeup. When Mark saw me at the door, he didn't insult me. He didn't compliment me either. He just looked me up and down and said, "Hurry up." That was somehow worse. The ride to the event was silent. Not peaceful silent. Heavy silent. Like the air between us had turned into glass, ready to shatter. Something in my gut told me, tonight wouldn't end quietly. When we reached the venue, Mark's entire body language changed. He straightened, smiled, softened his voice. He held my hand in the parking lot, something he hadn't done in months. But the moment the doors opened, he let go. Inside, Mark became the charming star of the evening. He laughed with guests, clapbacks, made jokes, and I stood beside him, nodding politely, trying to blend into the soft lighting. But tonight felt different. His eyes kept darting toward me, not in affection but in anticipation, as if he was waiting for something, as if he was planning something. I didn't know it then, but I was walking straight into the humiliating moment that would change everything. A group of executives approached us, smiling. Mark stepped closer to them, and one of them said, "Your wife looks lovely tonight." Mark chuckled loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Yeah, she actually tried this time." The group laughed. My stomach twisted. I tried stepping back, but Mark put a firm hand on my lower back, keeping me there like a prop. "I have to tell you," he continued, "you should have seen the dresses she tried on earlier." "Mark," I whispered, begging, "please don't." He ignored me. One of them looked like she stole it from a middle school prom. Everyone laughed again. Everyone, except me. That was the moment something inside me didn't just crack, it broke wide open. My cheeks burned. My throat went dry. Felt small. Invisible. Powerless. But behind all that, something new. Spark. A flicker of anger I didn't know I had. The kind of anger that doesn't scream, it watches. Plans. Waits. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't scared of losing him. I was scared of losing myself. And that fear would soon turn into something stronger. Something unstoppable. Something that would one day confront him, expose him, and change everything. The moment Neha closed the bedroom door behind her, her breath broke. Not a single tear fell, yet her throat ached like she had swallowed a storm. Her palms trembled. Her legs felt weak. Her entire body carried the echo of Ayan's voice. "Don't make a scene, Neha. You're embarrassing yourself." It replayed again and again. Each time sharper, crueler. She slid down against the door until she sat on the cold marble floor. Her chest moved fast, like she couldn't catch the air around her. On the other side of the wall, she could still hear faint laughter. Party guests finishing the night downstairs, probably joking, sipping the last drinks, talking about things that didn't matter. But to Neha, the whole world had narrowed into one thing. Pain. Deep, raw, confusing pain. She wasn't angry yet. Not fully. But something inside her, something silent and powerful, had begun to shift. New moon, a sleepless night. The night passed slowly. Every hour felt like a wet cloth pressing against her chest. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. She replayed the entire evening. The way the crowd looked at her. The silent smiles. The smirks exchanged when Ayan spoke over her. The moment he pulled his hand away from hers as if she were an inconvenience. She remembered seeing Reina whisper something to him. And the way he laughed with her, ignoring Neha completely. Worst of all, she remembered realizing she no longer recognized her husband. The man she married months ago was gentle, soft-spoken, respectful. This new version of him. Dark. Dismissive. Cruel without raising his voice. Some hurts don't need shouting. Some hurts whisper. The weight of a new reality. Neha stepped into the kitchen the next morning wearing a simple pastel robe. Her hair tied loosely. Faces still slightly puffy from the lack of sleep. She expected silence. But instead, she froze. Ayan wasn't alone. Raina sat at the kitchen island, flipping through her phone, her lipstick fresh and bright. Samar was pouring orange juice, wearing the same arrogant grin he always carried. Neha's heart dropped. Ayan leaned back in his chair, relaxed, as if nothing had happened the night before. As if he hadn't humiliated her. As if she were just another piece of furniture in the house. He looked at her once, sharp, cold, and said, "You took your time waking up." The tone wasn't annoyed. It was worse. It was dismissive. Neha swallowed hard. "I didn't sleep well." Raina gave a soft laugh. Barely audible, but enough. Ayan lifted his brows, smirking. "Yeah. She's sensitive," he said, glancing at Raina and Samar as if sharing an inside joke. Raina smiled knowingly. Samar chuckled into his glass. Neha's stomach twisted. She took a small step back, steadying herself. Her fingers gripped the edge of the counter. Ian didn't stop. "Neha, can you make breakfast? Everyone's hungry." She nodded without speaking. The silence in the kitchen was thick. Humiliating, suffocating. Like they were waiting for her to fail. As she cooked, she heard Raina whisper to Ayan. Low but not low enough. "You weren't kidding, she really is the soft type." Ayan laughed quietly, shaking his head. Neha's heart stopped. It wasn't just humiliation now. It was mockery, calculated, casual routine. She placed plates on the table with trembling hands. Not from fear this time. From something else. Something growing. Broken heart the moment that shifted everything. After breakfast, Ayan walked past her to the living room, brushing her shoulder slightly. But not gently. Not lovingly. Like she wasn't important enough to notice. Without a word, he joined his friends in the lounge, turning on the TV. Neha cleaned the table quietly. Her hands moved, but her mind was somewhere distant. This is not normal. This is not marriage. This is something else. Something wrong. When she finished cleaning, she passed by Ayan's office. The door was slightly open. She wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but she couldn't help hearing him. His voice was light, carefree. Different from the man who'd humiliated her all night. He was talking on the phone. And then she heard it. He laughed. And it was a laugh that stabbed something inside her. "Nah man, it's fine. You know how wives get." She just overreacted. Made a big deal out of nothing. Her throat tightened. Bro, trust me, Neha's harmless. Predictable. She won't say anything. She doesn't even argue. Predictable. Harmless. The words hit her harder than anything earlier. She felt her skin go cold. Not because he insulted her. Not because he didn't defend her. But because he truly believed she didn't matter. That she would stay quiet. That she would always stay quiet. Cloud with rain alone in the bedroom. Hours later, when the guests left and the house fell silent, Neha sat alone at the foot of her bed. Her fingers twisted a piece of the bedsheet. Her breath shook. Her eyes burned, but she still didn't cry. The tears stuck in her chest, somewhere deep, like they were too heavy to rise. She thought about their early months. The gentle Ayan who asked her how her day was. The thoughtful messages he once sent. The blush on his face the day he proposed. The promises whispered late at night. Where did he go? Did she do something wrong? Did she fail? Did she bore him? Her mind spiraled. Until suddenly, stop. A quiet, calm realization formed inside her. This isn't my fault. Ayan's behavior wasn't an accident. It wasn't stress. It wasn't a bad day. It was a pattern. Pattern he enjoyed. A pattern he never expected her to break. High voltage, the first spark of power. Neha slowly stood up and walked toward the mirror. Her reflection shocked her. Tired eyes. Soft trembling lips. A woman who looked smaller than before. But then she straightened her shoulders. Lifted her chin. The reflection shifted. She didn't look weak now. She looked awake. Truly awake. A thought pushed into her mind. Quiet, steady, dangerous. Aeon thinks I'm predictable. Her breath deepened. Aeon thinks I won't speak up. She took one step closer to the mirror. Aeon thinks I won't fight back. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was electric. For the first time since the humiliation started, she felt something new. Resolve. Her voice, barely a whisper, escaped her lips. He has no idea what I'm capable of. Crescent moon, the calm before the turning point. That night Neha didn't break. She didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead she observed. She paid attention. She listened to small things he said. She noticed the way he checked his phone quickly when she entered a room. She saw him laughing at a message from a number she didn't recognize. These weren't accusations. They were observations. Pieces. Blues. And for the first time, instead of feeling crushed, Neha felt something sharp. Focus. Purpose. A quiet plan forming somewhere inside her. She didn't know exactly what she was going to do. Not yet. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She would not stay silent. Not anymore. Not after what he did. Not after the way he dismissed her. Not after telling his friends she was harmless. That single word. That single, careless, confident word had awakened something inside her that was impossible to put back to sleep. Sun behind small cloud the next morning. A new Neha. She came downstairs early the next morning. She looked calm, composed, almost peaceful. Aeon didn't even look up from his phone when she passed him. He assumed she was the same Neha as always. Quiet. Predictable. He didn't notice the subtle differences. The steadiness in her walk. The confidence in her shoulders. The clarity in her eyes. He didn't know the truth. He didn't realize that something had changed. Something small but powerful. Beginning. A quiet beginning of a storm he had created himself. A storm that would soon turn toward him. A storm that would expose him. But for now, Neha kept her silence. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. Morning light poured through the curtains, soft and warm, but Neha felt none of it. For the first time in months, she wasn't waking up to survive the day. She was waking up with intention. She moved through the house quietly, but inside her something was roaring. A silent fire that Aeon had accidentally ignited. He thought she was harmless, predictable, easy to silence. He had no idea what he had created. Sun behind small cloud, the first suspicion. Aeon left for work earlier than usual, barely glancing at her before walking out the door. No good morning. No how did you sleep. Not even the pretended sweetness he used to show during the early months of marriage. Just an annoyed, tired sigh. As if she were a burden he had to tolerate. The moment the door clicked shut, Neha exhaled. Her hands rested on the kitchen counter as the house around her fell into deep silence. And then, it hit her. Phone. The way Aeon instantly locked it every time she entered the room. The messages that made him smile. The late-night calls. The sudden secrecy. She never checked his phone before. She never felt the need to. But now she needed to understand what changed him. Why he became cruel. Who he talked to so much. Why he suddenly hated everything she did. This wasn't about jealousy. It was about answers. Mobile phone, a small discovery. She walked into his office. Everything was impeccably clean. Ayan was like that. Organized. Controlled. But today something was different. His laptop charger was missing. He must have left it at home by mistake. Neha's heartbeat quickened. Ayan never left his charger. He was meticulous, borderline obsessive about his belongings. And his laptop. His laptop contained the truth he would never speak aloud. She hesitated for several seconds. Then she walked to his desk, gently opened a drawer and found it. A slim black laptop, screen smudged with fingerprints. Her hands trembled. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From the realization that today, her life might change. She pressed the power button. It lit up. No password. Her breath hitched. He trusted her so much. Or thought she was so weak, so harmless, that he didn't even bother protecting his truth. She opened the mail app. And everything inside her froze. Dozens of messages. Late-night messages. Playful, flirtatious, casual messages. Not from one woman. From two. Reina. And someone named Lila. Her eyes burned but still no tear fell. She clicked one email from Reina. Last night was hilarious. She looked like she might cry. Your wife is too easy to read. Neha felt her stomach turn. Another email. She's sweet but boring. I don't know how you tolerate it. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the table. Then the worst one. Ayan. She won't leave. Trust me. She depends on me completely. Her breath broke. Her heart cracked. Her world shook. But she didn't cry. Not this time. Because pain had started turning into clarity. Into understanding. Into fuel. Broken heart. The phone call. As she closed the laptop, her vision blurred slightly. Not from tears, but from disbelief. He humiliated her not because she was weak. He humiliated her because he wanted to feel powerful. Wanted to feel admired. Wanted attention from other women. She stepped back from the desk, her pulse pounding in her ears. And then her phone buzzed. Oh, her mother. Neha hesitated. She wasn't ready to talk to anyone. But something in her mother's voice always gave her calm. She answered softly, "Hi, Ma." Instantly she heard concern. "You sound tired," her mother said gently. "Everything okay?" Neha closed her eyes. For a moment she wanted to lie. Yes, pretend. But the words didn't come. Instead, her silence spoke. Her mother sighed quietly, in that knowing way only mothers understand. "You can tell me when you're ready," she said. "But remember, you're not alone. You're stronger than you think." Neha didn't respond, but her throat tightened. After the call ended, she stood still for a long time. Her mother's words settled in her heart. "You're stronger than you think." She wasn't sure she believed it. Not yet. But she wanted to. High voltage, a broken frame. As she walked toward the hallway, something caught her eye. A picture frame on the wall. One from their wedding day. Ian smiling so brightly. Neha looking up at him with hope. Hope that now felt like a memory from another lifetime. She touched the glass, and the frame shifted slightly. Crooked. Her fingers tightened unconsciously. The frame slipped. Fell. The glass shattered. A small gasp escaped her lips. Symbolic sound. Soft breaking echo. She knelt to gather the broken pieces. Carefully. Quietly. But her hands shook. Not from sadness. From realization. Their marriage had already shattered. Long before this picture frame. She simply hadn't seen the cracks. She placed the pieces in her palm, staring at the reflection of light on broken edges. Then she looked in the mirror. Her reflection had changed again. Less fear. More fire. New moon evening. The return of the storm. The hours passed. Neha didn't confront him. She didn't scream or accuse or ask questions. Instead, she prepared dinner normally. Moved through the house the same way she always did. Predictable. But this time, she wasn't predictable out of weakness. She was predictable by strategy. She was learning his patterns, learning how he reacted, learning when he was distracted, learning how he lied. She needed more than hurt to stand against him. She needed proof. Real proof. Proof he couldn't deny. Proof he couldn't gaslight her out of. Proof she could use later. When the moment came. 9 o'clock Ayan comes home. When Ayan finally walked through the door at 9 p.m., Neha was sitting on the couch, a book in hand. He barely looked at her. His tone was annoyed, tired. "You didn't cook." "I did," she replied calmly. "It's in the kitchen." He walked past her without a single word of appreciation. Not even a glance. For once she felt nothing. No ache. No sadness. Only clarity. He didn't hate her. He didn't love her either. He simply didn't see her. He saw what she provided. Her silence. Her compliance. Her predictability. That's why he felt safe humiliating her. But that was going to end. Not today. Not tomorrow. Soon. He just didn't know it yet. Waning crescent moon, the spark turns into a plan. That night, Neha lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her heart didn't race anymore. Her mind wasn't foggy. For the first time, everything felt painfully clear. She whispered into the darkness. "He thinks I'm harmless." She turned on her side, eyes steady, focused. "He has no idea who I really am." And in that quiet, still room, plan was born. Not revenge. Not hatred. Truth. She would gather proof. Real proof. Proof of his lies, his messages, his humiliation. She would expose him. Not out of anger, but out of justice for herself. For the woman he tried to silence. For the dignity he crushed. For the love he betrayed. Tonight was the beginning of something he could never predict. Something he could never stop. The unraveling of Ayan's lies. And the rise of the woman he underestimated. Neha woke up the next morning with a heaviness in her chest. But also a strange sense of direction. Not confidence yet, but purpose. A quiet, determined purpose that felt like the first breath after drowning for too long. She moved through the house silently, almost ghost-like, her mind echoing the words she whispered in the dark. "He has no idea who I really am." Today, that sentence was no longer a whisper. It was a decision. Sunrise morning silence before the storm. The sun cast a golden glow across the kitchen, but Ayan's presence dimmed everything. He walked in with the same air of superiority he always carried. Shoulders pulled back, chin lifted, eyes sharp with quiet irritation. He didn't greet her. He never did anymore. He picked up his mug, frowned at the coffee she made, and muttered under his breath. "Even this you can't get right." The words should have stung. But they didn't. Not today. Neha simply watched him with a calmness he didn't understand. Calmness that made him uneasy, though he couldn't explain why. She noticed it. The slight twitch in his jaw. The quick glance he threw at her when he thought she wasn't looking. His fingers tapping restlessly against the counter. Anne wasn't used to silence. He was used to control. He was used to her breaking first. Today she didn't. That alone started rattling him. Sun behind small cloudy leaves. And the real work begins. As soon as Ayan left the house, Neha locked the door behind him, not in fear but for privacy. She grabbed gloves, tied her hair, and sat by the dining table with Ayan's laptop. Not to snoop, to understand, to gather, to prepare. She had already seen the emails from Reina and Lila, but she needed more. Patterns, timelines, receipts, screenshots, proof of lies. She opened his email again. She clicked deeper. And that's when she found it. Second inbox. Hidden inside another folder. Labeled with a single star. Most people wouldn't even notice it. But Neha did. Her hand trembled as she clicked it open, then froze. Inside were dozens of emails, not from Raina or Lila, but from a third woman, someone named Eliza. And these emails weren't flirtatious. They were transactional, cold, professional, discussing payments, transfers, hotel bookings, receipts. Neha leaned closer, her breath caught in her throat. One email stood out. Confirmed. You won't have to deal with your wife for long. Neha's stomach dropped. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She clicked it. Inside was a message from Eliza. Your plan is bold. But if you cooperate fully, the outcome will be smooth. You'll get the freedom you want. Neha's vision swam. Her mouth ran dry. Her hands grew cold. Zayn, trying to get rid of her. She clicked the attachment. Hotel receipt. From 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. When he told her he was on a work trip. Another email. Eliza. Once everything is finalized legally, you'll be able to introduce Raina openly. No more hiding. Her chest tightened. The betrayal that hit her wasn't like before. It wasn't burning or tearing. It was numbing. Easy. Terrifyingly calm. She wasn't losing a marriage. She was losing the illusion of one. She pushed back from the table, breath hitched, chest trembling. Her knees almost buckled. She gripped the chair to stay upright. Her entire marriage, 6 years of loyalty, 6 years of sacrifices, reduced to luxury hotel receipts and secret plans with a woman named Eliza. Her life wasn't breaking apart. It had already broken. And she was only now seeing the pieces. She sat on the floor, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. For the first time since her wedding, Neha cried. Not small tears. Not soft sobs. She cried from the deepest part of her soul. Cried for the years she lost. Cried for the woman she used to be. Cried for the love she gave that was never valued. Her hands covered her mouth as her cries trembled through her body, spilling out like a dam finally bursting. Minutes turned to an hour. And still she cried. Until she couldn't cry anymore. Until she was empty. When the last tear fell, something in her changed. Something permanent. She wiped her face. She inhaled deeply. She closed her eyes. And she made a quiet decision. This time, she wasn't the one who would break. Yan would. She pressed her palms flat on the floor and stood up slowly. She wasn't shaking now. Her legs were steady. Her spine straight. Her breath controlled. Grief had melted. Fear had dissolved. What remained was purpose. Maybe even strength. For the next 3 hours, Neha moved through the house with cold precision. She backed up every email. Took screenshots. Saved dates. Saved attachments. Cross-checked hotel bookings. Took pictures of his messages. Forwarded everything to a private email she created moments earlier. Her hands were steady now. Her eyes sharp. She wasn't an emotional wife anymore. She was a woman preparing for war. At one point, she paused at the mirror in the dining hall. Her reflection looked unfamiliar. Red eyes, pale face. But burning with something fierce. She touched the mirror gently. Not anymore, she whispered. I'm done being silent. Aeon returned home early. That never happened. He walked in, looked around the house like he sensed something off and called. Neha. Where are you? Neha stepped out of the guest room with a neutral expression. I'm here. He studied her face. Longer than usual. Something in her eyes made him uncomfortable. He couldn't name it, but he felt it. Why are you so quiet? He asked. You like it when I'm quiet, she replied calmly. Ayan's brows furrowed. He wasn't expecting that. He wasn't expecting resistance, or clarity, or anything new from her. He moved closer, eyes narrowing slightly. You're acting strange. I'm just tired, she said. Lie. He sensed it. But he couldn't confront it. Not with the guilt he carried from emails she didn't know existed. Except she did. He didn't know that. During dinner, he kept glancing at her. Her quietness wasn't submission today. It was observation. And he could feel it. He fumbled with his fork. Got irritated over small things. Yelled at her for forgetting to put salt on the table. Even though she didn't forget anything. But she didn't react. Not even once. Not a flinch. Not a sigh. Not a single word to defend herself. That scared him more than any argument. Ayan thrived on her emotional reactions. Today she gave him nothing. And that terrified him. After dinner he went to answer a call outside. He thought she wouldn't hear. But she did. She had learned to listen in silence. And this call made her blood freeze. Ayan, Reina said on the other end, her voice low, annoyed. Why haven't you told her yet? Neha stood still behind the half-open door. Ayan whispered sharply. I told you not now. She's too emotional lately. Emotional? Reina scoffed. You said she's predictable. She was, Ayan snapped. Something's off. Neha's heartbeat slow but steady. Listen. Reina pressed. You promised you'd settle the papers with Eliza by now. I know, he hissed. Just give me time. Neha's eyes widened in real raw horror. Papers. What papers? Eliza wasn't another woman. She was something worse. A legal consultant. Planner. A partner in something bigger. Something dangerous. Neha's breath froze. And then, Ayan said the words that shattered the last piece of innocence in her. I just need to handle things so she won't fight back later. She can't know until the final step. Final step. For the first time in her life, Neha felt a fear that touched her bones. This wasn't just betrayal. This was preparation. This was a plan. This was danger. Ayan wasn't just cheating. Ayan was planning something life-altering. Something Neha wasn't meant to see coming. But she had. She stepped away silently, quiet as a shadow, back into the house, back into her room. And she whispered to herself, this is bigger than I thought. Then, with a clarity so sharp it felt like armor, she said. And he has no idea what's coming. Neha barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, the same words replayed in her mind like a poison that refused to leave. She can't know until the final step. Settle the papers with Eliza. You promised. Her heartbeat was slow but heavy, like her chest was carrying a truth too large to hold. Ayan slept in the other room. She could hear him breathing. Low. Peaceful. How could someone sleep peacefully while planning to destroy the person who loved him the most? Neha stared at the ceiling, her fingers gripping the blanket as if she were holding on to the last thread of her old life. Around 4 a.m., she whispered into the darkness. I'm not scared of you anymore. And surprisingly, she meant it. Ayan left for work unusually early. He didn't kiss her goodbye. He didn't even look at her. He closed the door behind him, and unknowingly opened another door inside her. Neha took a deep breath and whispered, now it begins. She grabbed her phone and dialed a number she had never dialed before. Not a friend, not family, someone else, someone Ayan never expected. But before she made the call, her phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. Neha frowned and opened it. The message was terrifyingly simple. You need to leave that house. E. Her hands froze. E. Eliza. Her stomach dropped. Her breath trembled. She stared at the message again, her heart racing. How did Eliza get her number? Why was she warning her? What did she know? Neha's fingers trembled as she typed. Who are you? The reply came instantly. Someone who knows what he's planning. Meet me today. Alone. The blood drained from Neha's face. She swallowed hard. And typed just one word. Where? At 10 a.m., Neha sat on a bench outside a small cafe. Hands cold, eyes scanning every passing face. Then, a woman sat beside her. Black coat, brown hair pulled into a tight bun. A folder in her hands. She didn't look at Neha. She didn't smile. She simply said, "I'm Eliza." Neha's chest tightened. She whispered, "Why did you message me?" Eliza opened the folder and pushed it toward her. Inside were documents. The same documents Ion had been rushing her about. Legal papers. Financial transfers. Statements. At the top of the stack was a page titled, "Petition for Divorce. With Mental Instability Grounds." Neha felt the earth tilt beneath her. "Mental instability," she whispered, her voice cracking. Eliza nodded slowly. "Ion told me your mental health is declining. That you're paranoid, emotional, dependent. That you could become a danger to yourself." Neha shook her head violently. "That's not true. He's lying." "I know," Eliza said calmly. "That's why I reached out." Neha stared at the woman in disbelief. Eliza continued. "He hired me to help him secure assets and ensure that you had no legal defense. But I noticed inconsistencies. Things didn't add up." He paused, then said the words that shattered Neha's world. "Ion doesn't just want a divorce. He wants full control of the house, your savings, and the insurance policy under your name." Neha's breath caught. Her pulse spiked. Insurance, name, or life. Everything clicked. Cold emails. The secrecy. The final step. Her entire body went numb. She looked at Eliza with terror-filled eyes. "He wouldn't hurt me," Neha whispered. Eliza looked straight ahead and said nothing. That silence was louder than any answer. Eliza handed her a small USB drive. "What's this?" Neha asked. "A recording," she said. "From a meeting he had with Reina." Neha's veins turned to ice. "He told her," Eliza continued, "that once everything is finalized, you'll be out of the picture." Neha pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Tears pooled in her eyes. Out of the picture. Not divorced. Not separated. Eliza's voice softened. Not with empathy, but with professionalism. "You need to protect yourself. I'll help you. But you have to move quietly." Neha blinked away tears. "But why help me? You don't even know me." Eliza finally looked her in the eyes. Her voice was low, cold, but honest. "Because I've seen women like you before. And I've seen how their stories end." Neha's hands trembled so hard she had to grip the bench. "Eliza, what do I do?" "Start gathering everything," Eliza said. "Record him. Document every conversation. Make copies of everything he owns. And stay calm." Then she added the most chilling instruction of all. "And whatever you do, don't let him know you know." Neha returns home. A different woman. When Neha walked back into the house, everything looked the same. The furniture, the curtains, the familiar smell. But she was not the same. Her steps were careful. Her breathing quiet. Her eyes sharper. She placed the folder under a loose floorboard. She hid the USB in a tissue box. She wiped her tears clean. She had to act. And act fast. Candle evening, Ion makes his first mistake. Ion came home with an unusual softness in his voice. He smiled. Fake smile. A rehearsed smile. "Neha," he said, "you look tired. Are you feeling okay?" She looked at him for a long moment. Too long. He forced another smile. "We should talk. I've been thinking about us." The word tasted rotten now. Neha walked closer, slow, silent, almost ghost-like. Her eyes were calm, but inside her mind was a wildfire. "What do you want to talk about?" she asked. Ayan hesitated. He wasn't used to her steady voice, her unreadable face. He looked unsettled. And nothing important. We'll talk later. He turned away. But Neha noticed something. He had placed a small black device on the edge of the shelf. A recording device. Spy device. He was listening, tracking, monitoring. Her throat tightened. Her pulse quickened. But she didn't react. She simply smiled softly and said, "Of course. We'll talk later." Ian blinked. He didn't trust that smile. He shouldn't have. Because for the first time in their entire marriage, Neha was the one who knew more. Neha was the one preparing. Neha was the one 2 steps ahead. And Ayan. He didn't even realize. His game had just started falling apart. Ayan stood in the living room, staring at Neha's smile long after she walked away. Something was off. Something in her eyes. Something in her voice. Something he couldn't name, but felt. His jaw clenched. He whispered under his breath, "She knows something." Meanwhile, upstairs, Neha sat on the edge of the bed, her heart thudding in her chest. She waited, listening, counting his footsteps. 4 steps. 2 steps. Another pause. He was pacing. He was thinking. And that meant she didn't have much time. She reached under the bed frame and pulled out a small notebook, pen, a phone she had factory reset, her survival kit. She whispered to herself, "Stay calm. Stay invisible. Stay ahead. Fire Ayan's first slip." When Ayan finally came upstairs, his face was stiff, too stiff. He sat beside her. Too close. Too intentional. "Neha," he said softly, "I've been thinking maybe we should take a break from the stress. Maybe go on a weekend getaway." Her chest tightened. A getaway. Away from people. Away from public places. Away from witnesses. Her fingers curled into the bedsheet. But she forced a soft smile. "That sounds nice," she said quietly. Jan searched her face. She kept it calm, unshaken. But inside her mind screamed. "He's accelerating the plan. He thinks I'm vulnerable. He thinks I'm clueless." But let him think that. Late that night, Neha found the perfect moment. Ayan was stepping out of the shower. His phone on the counter, unlocked. She slid her phone behind the door, hit record and stepped into the hallway. "Ayan," she called. He stiffened. Her timing was perfect. "What?" he said sharply. Neha kept her voice small, shaky. Pretending. "I heard you talking earlier to someone. Why did you say she'll break soon?" Jan froze. Water dripped from his hair. His eyes flickered, panic, anger, calculation. "I never said that," he lied immediately. Neha looked down at the floor, playing the role flawlessly. "I'm just scared," she whispered. "Please don't hide things from me." Jan took a slow breath. Then he placed his hand on her shoulder. Fake comfort. "You're imagining things." Blick. The phone captured everything. His lie. His tone. His manipulation. Neha walked away calmly. Inside, she was shaking. But she had proof. Her first solid piece. Her first weapon. Reina returns. With a hidden agenda. The next morning, Reina showed up without warning. Neha was in the dining room, pretending to clean. She heard the front door open. Heard heels. Heard voices. Reina's voice. Neha's spine stiffened. She moved quietly to the hallway, staying just out of sight. Reina's tone was sharp, irritated. "Ayan, you said everything would be done by now. Why is she still here?" Neha felt her stomach drop. Anne's voice was calm, too calm. "Relax. She's almost where she needs to be." "Where she needs to be." Reina scoffed. "This is taking too long. You promised." Anne cut her off sharply. "I said I'll handle it. Stop questioning me." Reina's breath hitched. Neha heard the sound of her heels shifting. You're starting to scare me, Reina whispered. Ayan stepped closer. Neha could hear the tension. You knew what you signed up for, he whispered. Neha clasped a hand over her mouth. Her heart hammered so violently she feared they might hear it. Fire Ayan becomes suspicious. That evening, Ayan entered the bedroom and closed the door. Quietly. Too quietly. Neha was reading a notebook, pretending again. Ayan sat opposite her and stared. Just stared. Neha felt each second stretch like a wire pulled tight. Finally, Ayan asked, Neha, have you touched anything in my office? She looked up slowly. Confused expression. Honest eyes. Perfect act. No. Why? She whispered. He tilted his head. His eyes narrowed. I don't know. Things feel moved. Inside her chest, panic surged. But she kept her breath steady. I haven't been in your office, she said softly. You don't let me. Ian blinked. For a moment he softened. Just a moment. Then he nodded. Right. Forget it. But Neha saw the shift. He didn't believe her. He was watching her now. Every move. Every breath. The danger grew sharper. Closer. Later that night, Ayan went to the balcony to take a call. He closed the glass door behind him, thinking Neha couldn't hear. Neha moved quietly, slipping closer to the door. The voice on the phone wasn't Reina. It was Samar. Yes, Ayan, I sent the documents to the private email, Samar said. You don't have a lot of time. She's starting to act differently. Watch her. A knife of terror slid through Neha's chest. Ayan's voice was low, dangerous. I know. And if she tries anything, we move to phase 3. Neha's throat closed. Phase 3. What was phase 3? Ayan ended the call and turned. Neha slid quietly back to the bed seconds before he came inside. She kept her breathing slow, steady, pretending to sleep. Ayan walked over and just stood there watching her. Silent. Cold. For a long time. Neha kept her eyes closed. She didn't blink. Not once. Finally, Ayan whispered. Don't make this harder for yourself. The moment he fell asleep, Neha sat up. She reached under the mattress and pulled out the USB Eliza had given her. She plugged it into her laptop. Her hands shook uncontrollably. A folder opened. Inside, audio files, signatures, bank transfers, Kin's private messages, legal drafts, a timeline labeled, Final Execution Plan. She clicked the first file. Anne's voice filled the room. She'll believe anything I say. That's the beauty of it. Once everything is signed, she won't have a place to stand. Neha covered her mouth to stop the scream from escaping. Tears streamed down her face. Her entire world crumbled. But right under the sound of heartbreak, another sound rose. Determination. She copied every file, backed up every message, recorded everything. Then she whispered, This ends soon, Ayan. But not the way you planned. Neha barely slept. Her mind replayed the files she heard. Ayan's voice dripping with manipulation, the timelines, the strategies, the cold, calculated plan to erase her identity, her security, her life. But this time she didn't cry. This time something inside her hardened. When dawn crept in, Neha looked at her reflection in the mirror. The same woman Ayan thought he could break. He had no idea. She whispered to her reflection, Today you lose. At breakfast, Ayan behaved like everything was normal. He poured his coffee, adjusted his tie, checked his watch twice, planning, calculating. Neha watched silently. But he didn't know she had already. Heavy checkmark emailed the entire folder to Eliza. Heavy checkmark backed it up on cloud storage. Heavy checkmark saved it on multiple USBs. Heavy checkmark printed key documents and buried them in places he'd never check. Today wasn't about running. Today was about exposure. Around noon, Neha texted Eliza. It's time. Are you ready? Eliza replied instantly. Whenever you say. I have the legal team waiting. Neha inhaled deeply, her stomach twisting with equal parts fear and strength. She turned to Ayaan, who was checking something on his phone. Ayaan, can we talk? He looked up, a practiced softness on his face. Of course. What's wrong? He said gently. Neha forced a shaky breath. I think you're right about needing a break. Maybe we should go out today. Just to clear the air. Ayaan's eyes lit up in triumph. He thought he had won. He thought she was surrendering. Absolutely, he said warmly. I'll take you somewhere special. Neha smiled faintly. He has no idea the destination belongs to me. Ayaan drove with confidence, one hand on the wheel, one on his phone. Neha watched him from the corner of her eye. He thought today would be the day she'd fall apart. He had no idea today would be the day he fell. As they drove, Neha texted Eliza secretly. 10 minutes away. Eliza. Everyone's in position. Neha swallowed. Her palms were cold. But her eyes were steady. Ayaan parked outside a beautiful modern building. A fancy private lounge. Secluded. Perfect for manipulation. Perfect for intimidation. He turned to her with false tenderness. Neha, I just want to talk. Fix things. She nodded weakly. Me too. They walked in. And stopped. Because inside the lounge were heavy checkmark Eliza. Heavy checkmark 2 lawyers. Heavy checkmark a private investigator. Heavy checkmark a woman Neha hadn't expected. Reina. Standing alone. Frozen. Terrified. Ayaan stiffened instantly. What the hell is this? He snapped. Neha stepped forward. Her voice steady. Her spine straight. This is the end. Ayaan's eyes burned with fury. He grabbed Neha's wrist, but Eliza's lawyer cut in. Touch her again and you're done for assault in front of witnesses. Ayaan froze. The PI stepped forward and laid a stack of printed documents on the table. His voice calm, professional. These are copies of all accounts you opened secretly. The transfers. The plan to seize her assets. The recordings. The witnesses. The messages with Samar. And your arrangement with Ms. Reina. Ayaan whipped his head toward Reina. You told them. Reina's voice trembled. You were going to throw me under the bus, Ayaan. You said if anything went wrong you'd blame me. Eliza stepped toward Neha, placing a hand on her back. Everything he tried to hide, she said softly. We found. Neha stared straight at Ayaan. For years you controlled everything, what I wore, who I talked to, how I lived. You humiliated me. Manipulated me. Gaslight me. But you made one mistake. Ayaan's jaw clenched. Neha leaned forward. You underestimated me. Neha clicked her phone. And the recording from the bathroom played. Ayaan's voice. She'll believe anything I say once everything is signed. She won't have a place to stand. Ayaan paled. The lawyer added. We have 6 more recordings, Mr. Ayaan. Plus emails. Plus bank fraud on her inheritance. The PI added quietly. You're looking at multiple charges. Ayaan took a step back. Then another. Everything was slipping. His control. His plan. His mask. He looked at Neha. You ruined me, he whispered. Neha shook her head. No. You ruined yourself. I just stopped playing blind. Eliza placed a folder on the table. The divorce papers. Full separation. No access to her accounts. No access to her home. Restraining order included. The second folder dropped. These charges are ready to file if you resist. Silence. Ayaan's hands shook. His voice cracked with something between rage and fear. You think you're strong now. You think you won. Neha stepped closer, inches from him. her voice quiet but sharp as steel. I didn't win. I survived you. That's enough. The warm sun spilled into Neha's new home, small but peaceful. She sipped tea on her balcony. Her phone buzzed. A message from Eliza. Final update. He accepted the settlement. Reina testified. Cases closed. You're free. Neha exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. She looked at the sky. No fear. No tension. No shadows creeping behind her. Just peace. And for the first time in years, she smiled to herself and whispered, I'm finally home. If Neha's courage touched your heart, don't leave without supporting her journey. Hit like, share this story with someone who needs strength today. And subscribe for more emotional stories like this one.